And in this session today, we are going to talk about the technology to use for these 3 weeks. As you know, these 3 weeks in the class, the application we are working on as a data analyst is sentimental analysis. That is the application. And the technology we are going to use is in-memory analytics by DB2 Warehouse of IBM. So today we are you have worked for the last 10 days with lectures on sentimental analysis, on text mining, on natural language processing, which are in the classroom. And now we should focus a little bit more in the technology because you understand in data science and analytics, we heavily rely on technology. So I'm going to do very quick overview on what is the technology we are using, why we are using this technology, and then Elena and Lenish are going to help you. They are going to do quick overview, walkthrough in DB2 and get you started with the services, because some of you even haven't started, and we've been on this already 10 days. The first small part, practical part, actually is due this Sunday. So with no more, we proceed. I just want to remind the big picture in this class. We've been talking from the beginning of the class that the big data analytic has different approach than the traditional. Because of the complexity of the data, it's not just because of the volume of the data. Because of the complexity of the data, any analytical problem has to be taken differently. And just this is very didactic, let's say, presentation of the traditional and big data approach. Traditionally, as you know, data analysts were requesting from the IT department to build a data warehouse, which took at least 6 months, a lot of money, and then they can run report. This is historical thing long ago, and today they established approach to deal with big data, and actually with all the data, because almost each data today fall on the category of big data because of the complexity, not because of the volume. So most of the things today in enterprise, in company, are by the second approach, where in the cloud, it can be private, public, whatever. The infrastructure is in the cloud, and then the data analyst, data scientist has all the tools in the cloud. And in order to solve analytical problem, one of the tasks is to be aware about the different tools which can help him to be more efficient solving problems, detect them, and integrate the needed one for solution of any problem. And every time he is going to solve a problem, he is going to integrate different type of services for each problem. So even though traditionally still businesses are running report, but today big chunk of what is analytic is by this approach, which is very flexible and in the cloud. And this is the way we are preparing you in order to respond to the industry needs. Everything in the cloud and integrating different services. You actually worked previous module was on Spark machine learning, and you worked in what is the today tendency for data scientists, data analysts, in what is Watson Studio. This is a collaborative cloud environment in which data scientists have many resources at hand, including RStudio, including computational resources like Spark, including DB2 Warehouse, which is the database part of this environment which I show. So in Watson Studio, which is particular, let's say, specific implementation of what we saw in the previous slide as a contemporary approach to deal with big data, where data scientists can find all the resources and integrate the needed one for the solution of the problem. And most importantly, remember, since the beginning to talk about real implementation of solving big data problem, since Hadoop was born already 12 years ago, the brilliant idea which Google brought to the table, which was bring the computation to the data, not data to the computation. Why? Because when the volume of the data is huge, you try, if you will start moving this huge amount of data, you need enormous resources and enormous time, and this is not an efficient solution for the need of the businesses. So bringing the computation to the data. And we continue with this, but in the next stage, which is for different problem, which has to do, many businesses today have problem which has to be solved very fast in order to get competitive advantage. And then we talk about what is in-memory analytic. In-memory analytic computation, as the name will click when we talk about this, it's like everything is in memory. If you think today, in the today real world, you understand that this is not possible, because even RAM has become cheaper with the Internet of Things and the huge amount of data. This is just not sustainable to maintain computation in RAM. So other approaches are needed in order to do better, faster, and economically feasible solution. Very important, because if you have better and faster, but the company cannot afford it, the company is not going to take it and is going to lose this competitive advantage with other businesses. So we are looking for solutions which are faster and with affordable costs. So businesses can grow revenue and be competitive. Just to give you a very specific example, when we talk about this type of problem, I have just very quick, for example, here. And you can think about, let's say you are the local government and you are collecting data for the smart meter, the parking meter of the whole city. This is collecting a sensor information, and you need immediate analysis of this huge volume of data in order to understand where is the congestion in parking, and in order to make decision how to move the traffic and what action has to be taken. So you understand that collecting this data for smart meter and analyzing them immediately is paramount in order to be efficient, analyzing this data and taking the right decision. As well, if you think about wireless provider which want to do some aggressive marketing, which are, you need to blast millions of customers at the same time with huge amount of data and collect data in order to make decisions. So there are huge amount of application today which rely on this. That's why many of the major provider of cloud and analytics have resources to deal with in-memory analytics. But just the approach is, instead to use just to feed the data in RAM in order to proceed with the analysis, which the quicker one is to query data. Instead to do that, create modern, different computer architecture which can be more efficient, that which can perform at the speed of the CPU, not of the speed of RAM, because you understand that in the speed of RAM we have some bottleneck moving data between CPU and RAM. So developer of technology in this direction to undertake and help businesses with this solution, thought about processing, accelerated processing, which is not physically in memory, but work at that speed, and moreover is more cost effective. And cost effective, we are talking about the solution available today. If, let's say, you have a server which would cost $5,000 per gigabyte, this modern technology, high-tech in-memory analytic, which is not physically in memory again, I want to stress which very much, is less than a penny for a gigabyte. So that is what we are exposed to, and this is the DBQ in cloud. This is totally, IBM has this technology, Oracle has similar technology for in-memory, AWS has Redis, which is similar technology, Microsoft also. So everyone, the big player today in this analytical world, they have something similar to the resources we are exposed to today, and this is, let's say, the high-tech last technology to solve in-memory problem which require in-memory analytic. Again, in-memory physically is not in memory, and the technology patented by the IBM is BLU. Don't look for any meaning of BLU, they just name it this way. And we are talking about high performance parallel processing for wide columnar data. Why wide columnar? You have some idea already about NoSQL for big data and why we are going with big data with wide columnar architecture. Because in big data, you may have the data has millions of rows and some columns. And in order to process some query, usually you are interested in 2 or 3 columns of thousands of rows. So the most efficient way to query these huge databases is to query by column, not by row, like the traditional way. So that is the key of the columnar databases in big data. And also, I want to focus also in something which there has been a lot of hype of NoSQL, but today work, and we see this even in our the technology we are using, SQL and non-SQL are convergent. We have on top of Spark SQL, we have SQL-like on top of Hadoop. So all these non-SQL and SQL technology are merging together, and everything is evolving so fast, and because to solve better business problems. So with no more, I want to stress in one very important characteristic of DB2 Warehouse and Cloud, that it has built-in analytic, which is R predictive modeling and SQL query. This is very important. So you don't need anything. You don't have to move data. You don't have to. This is very efficient for solving problems which require fast result. That's why this approach to built-in analytic is so powerful. And we are talking about that the beauty of this. I'm not going to go in deep in the computer science part of this. Just I selected some intriguing, interesting key points. So if someone is intrigued in the computer part science of in-memory analytic technology we are using in the cloud these 3 weeks, you can read additional articles. We have some in the classroom. You can find more of them. The beauty of this is, look how is the advancement. Hadoop was the biggest thing for big data, right? But when you add more server in Hadoop, the computational time doesn't decrease linearly. Let's put it this way. It's not a linear relation. in this technology we are talking today, which is massive parallel processing, is the name of the patent IBM is using. This is actually in general approach, and the specific one is the Blue of IBM. In this MPP approach, if you add a server, let's say with one server the computation in 1 hour, and you add 4 more, if the total server are 4, the computational time will be 15 minutes. I mean, linear relation. This is just so you can reflect that even though these technologies are changing very fast, and you are asking yourself, oh, would I need this in my work? You need to be trained in what is going on today and get prepared for tomorrow, because everything is advancing, and you have to be prepared with the today in order to be able to grasp what is going to be tomorrow and what you will be asked to do tomorrow in your job. And of course, being very open mind, all this learning of new technology, of course, has learning curve. We are helping as much as we can so you can grasp the minimum as soon as possible and understand how this technology can help data analysts. And be open mind that at work, in real life, these things change every few weeks, and you have to be prepared to look to the updated screenshot, to the updated interface, to updated parameter even, to updated function of the service. You have to, we are trying to train you so you can be trained in this direction and prepare it better for what is coming, because everything is going with huge speed. So I would say that the most important part we are going to exploit is the analytical part. We are not going to focus in the computational part. I just wanted your curiosity to wake up. And with no more, I'm going to give the presentation right to Elena, so she can do a walkthrough regarding the most important things, so you can be successful in doing the first part using this technology. So again, our application is sentimental analysis, and the technology we are using is in memory analytics. With no more, I'm giving this to Elena. Where is she? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I may have been on mute because...
Yeah, you were mute.
Yes, I did not want to, you know...
No, I'm going to mute myself because this is the best. Okay.
Yep. So, let me see. Should I use my slides, or should I, your slides are good enough, Elena? Should I use my slides? Elena, you might be on mute.
Yes, please use yours.
Okay, okay, so I have to, yes, okay, I see, no problem. So, I'm gonna go ahead and open my slides. Should I upload them, or what should I,
Whatever you want.
Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, but then it's gonna be 2 files. Well, I would rather share the screen. No problem.
Okay, let me remove this.
Oh, no problem. Oops.
Okay, I even don't know how to take it.
It's okay. Well, I can just use this. Why not?
Can you move them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect. You are all set.
So, Elena, or I mean myself, I'm infamous for speaking about what not to do. So, while your data is loading, you're not going to stop it. You just let it run, right? And don't stop, because physically, I mean secretly, when you stop something, you're starting another process to stop it. So just let it run. Even if you realize that you made a mistake, right? You just let it finish, and then you can drop the table and load it again, right? Do not use the browser back button. Just forget that you have it. And then RStudio on the cloud is very sensitive to how you end the session. So avoid clicking on avoid exiting out from the browser, right? Avoid doing it. Just exit RStudio properly, okay? Now, do not add more than one copy of the service. You only need one. Some of you reported that you added the service and you don't see it on the services list. Well, it takes few minutes. Wait for a few minutes and then refresh the page because, well, even though it says it's done, some processes might still be running in the background and you want to refresh the page, right? So, and this is very important. Do not install R packages that you're not going to use. And always check before you install anything. Please check either with myself or Lineage. Alright? Because there could be some compatibility issues. The latest R version in general is 3.5.1, but on the cloud it's a little bit older version. So some packages, latest version might not be still compatible with the cloud. And plus, not all packages are suitable for what we do in the cloud. Okay? So now, yes, there are several packages in the walkthrough. Those are you clear to install, like IBM DBR. That one you have to install to be able to connect to database, right? So this is important. Okay, somebody always does it. Every semester I find at least one or two people doing it. Do not type your SQL code in the Microsoft Word or in any text-rich editor because there are some characters that get introduced and they may ruin the code. Trust me, I don't want you to be sitting there and trying to redo the code on the night when the project is due, the assignment is due. And same thing for R code. Let's avoid using Word and any rich text editor. Use Notepad or something similar. Now, promise me that you're not going to wait until the last minute to do the work. So now, what should you do? Remember this. The best way to get something done is to begin, okay? Remember this code. Anyway, now, in addition to saving the work on the cloud environment, I want you to save all code on your PC. SQL code you want to keep saving because if you stay idle for a while, your session times out and the work is unfortunately gone, the SQL especially. Alright? So you want to copy everything. Once you got the SQL working, copy it to your editor on your local PC. The R code that you save is saved on the cloud, but just in case, you want to save a copy on your PC. Because what happens if the service is down, right, and it's time for you to submit an assignment? If you have a local copy of the code, you're still good to submit, right? So here, this is a good editor. If you're a Windows user, Notepad or TextPad, something like that. Now, there are some ungraded exercises in the walkthrough. You need to do them. If something is not graded, it doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. You do. In fact, there are some questions in the quiz that could depend on the output. Some questions are on the output. So you have to somehow do the ungraded exercises, right, to check what the output is and to answer questions. Post your questions in the discussions, and you want to follow instructions, and you want to, when you're doing an assignment, you want to go beyond examples in the walkthrough, but it does not mean installing packages, but it could be perhaps, for example, if you're looking at the association rules, you might want to explore what different method parameters do, right? You want to look at different visualization types, yeah, something like that, right? Now, however, you want to make sure that you do the minimum first, because I've seen students get really ambitious about something, but then don't get the minimum done. So first, when you start, you want to make sure that you have the basics done, right? And then you keep on adding to it, right? Okay, now, this is the application that you need to add, DB2 warehouse on the cloud. And if you are getting the error message when you're trying to add the DB2 warehouse on the cloud, when you try to add the service, if you're getting an error message, please, please, please contact me and Lineage immediately, okay? Promise me that if you have not started the walkthrough. After this session, you're going to start. And if you are unable to add DB2 warehouse on a cloud, you need to let me know immediately. Well, I realize there could be some maintenance window tonight, but after the maintenance window, if you are even unable to add the service, you have to let us know immediately. Okay, we'll work on it. Now, here are some questions that a student asked, and I'm gonna show you. I may have to share the screen to answer it. But there is a space limit on your account, and some students ask, how do I know how much space I have left? So see that this is a toolbar that you will see, and at the top you see that it says 0%. So you just want to, well, I'm sure that you're not gonna use 1 gigabyte, but well, you never know. Okay, so there is a space limit. What should you do if you run out of space? Well, this is a question from past semesters. If you run out of space, you have to delete the tables that you're no longer in use. Now, if you receive this error message over here, and the message says that you have exceeded the organization limit, it means that you have more than 10 services on your account, and then you have to delete something that you no longer use, okay? Well, in your case, it might not be applicable, but last semester this assignment was last assignment, so some of your schoolmates already had 10 services. But keep that in mind that the limit is 10 services, no more than 10 services at a time for student accounts. All right. So this one, I'm just telling you, your first graded exercise is to take a screenshot of the load. You're given a very good scenario, the data should be clean, but in here in this screenshot I'm showing you that in general, if you were working with your own data set, you may have received some of the warnings. Take a look at this screenshot here. It says the number of rows in the original file, number of rows that were loaded, rows rejected. Looks good, right? But if this numbers looks good, it does not mean that there are no warnings, right? There could be still some warnings. It does not mean that the data was loaded as expected. And the problem actually happens when you have a field that contains new line character. It does not like the new line characters because it treats them, whatever follows the new line, it treats as if it was a new line, new data row. So, and sometimes, let me show you what you could see. Not this, see this? If you see extra columns that should not be there, it means that there is a problem with the data load. These extra columns indicate a problem with the data load. So after you load the data, you want to make sure that the number of columns in your data matches the number of columns in a file that you loaded. You want to check the number of rows, and you also perhaps you may look at the first 10 rows, just at the first 10, and you want to look at the frequency count also, right? You want to check, for instance, what airlines you have, so that there is no something like weird, unexpected in the data, right? And this one, I'm just showing you that this is an example of an error message, example of a warning, what could go wrong, okay? And this is number of time that issue occurs. But for your data, if you use the data from the assignment folder, there should be no problem, but I still need to show you that. Because part of your assignment is that you have to verify if the data was loaded without problems. So you want to check the row count, you want to check to make sure that the columns match, and so on, right? So this is just an example. Okay. Now, this one, I'm just showing you when you load in the data, you're instructed to load data in the new table, but in general, you can also override. You can upload data in existing table, and you can do append, or you can do override. But when you override the data, you cannot override the partial. You can override the whole table, or you can append means that you don't delete the record that's already in there, but you add to it. That's what it means, okay? And you want to make sure if you're loading data in a table that already exists, you want to make sure that the data you're loading is compatible. So that means that the column data type should match and the number of columns should match, alright? So now let's see what else is in here. This is the screen, the Explore tab. So if you have to delete the data, this is what you will do. You would go to Explore tab, you will select your table and click delete, right? So if you mess something up, you will have to do this in the left, right? In the left panel, you'll see your schema. You'll click on the schema name. Then you'll get the list of tables in your schema. You would click on the table, and then you would click on delete. That's how you delete the table. Drop, actually. I like to use the correct functionality. The correct functionality is drop, because delete actually deletes the data from the table, does not delete the whole table, the table structure, but to drop the table, right? This will actually drop. Okay. Now let me actually go back to. Okay, this was a question here. I completed my load. When the load is complete, I get the status page. But what if I don't take a screenshot of the status page? On the landing page, when you log in, on the bottom, there is a log of prior data loads. You can still go back and open the log entry. So let me go ahead. Actually, I think I have to start sharing the screen because it might be easier for you to understand if I do it as a hands-on. So let me do this share. Oops. Share my screen. Oops. So that's a copy of the slides. I have the slides. So now, oops. Let me go back. This is here. So here, this is what I was talking about. This is Explore. Oops. Okay, take a look at this. I'm going to go to Explore. This is your schema name, and the schema name is basically your username, right? It's a set of objects that you own. Your table, sometimes it could be your views, anything that you create. And it's going to start with dash, right? So you click on that, and it's going to give you the list of tables in your schema. And if I was going to delete something, I would select this, and I would select delete. But remember that the delete cannot be undone. Okay, the delete cannot be undone. So just remember that. And those are just the sample schemas, samples. Alright, so whatever starts with dash, this is yours. And if you wanted to, you could also just create a table, but we're not doing it. When you use the load process, the table is created for you when you load the data in a new table. And notice that the table does not have constraints. There are no primary keys, right? Okay, so and then to run the SQL, you go to Run SQL interface, right? But if you go back to the home page, see this? This is a history of loads. Every time when I load my data, it's going to add an entry here, unless I click on the minus sign to delete it. So here, for instance, I was testing another data set called hotel reviews. I can click here, and that will take me to the data load. It will take me, see this, on the June 12th, I was testing a data set, so I can go back to the past load. So if you forgot to take a screenshot of the load status, you can go back to this and take the screenshot, okay? Alright, see, so this is the table name. Target is a table name where the data was loaded, and this is a file name on my PC. Here, it gives me the number of rows read and number of rows loaded, okay? Remember that when you preview data, it allows you to preview only the 4,000 rows. It does not allow you to preview the whole table, okay? Remember that. You cannot, it may be set like this for the security reasons, but you cannot preview the entire table. You can only preview first 1,000 rows. Well, I think you can increase the maximum up to 10,000. I'll have to check. But see, these two columns would be the load problem indicator. Now, we look at this slide. This is where the log is. You could go back to it. Now you could. In some older DB2 warehouse versions, you could not. Now, let's go back. Okay. So now I'm going to discuss the SQL now. Okay. So your select statement contains these clauses. Select and from clause are mandatory. So at least in DB2 warehouse on a cloud, your SQL statement will not work if it does not have a select and from. So basically, select is a comma delimited list of columns that you're selecting. From is going to specify a table, right, or a set of tables. Where clause is going to specify the filtering condition, right? So you can filter the rows. For example, I can select the users who live at a specific location. A group by, it allows me to aggregate the data. For instance, I can calculate the average negative sentiment confidence per airline, right? Having this allows eliminating the groups. For instance, if I want to find out the airline with below average negative sentiment, right, reason. Okay, so I will have to use the having clause, because having eliminates the group. And order by, that one, it allows sorting data, all right? It allows sorting data. So what I did for you here, I have some queries that I'm going to show you, but something else. You want to make sure that the spelling of the table name matches the spelling of the table name in the database. The table name in the query must match. If I misspell the table name, my query will return an error. The same applies for the column names, right? So we're going to start with more simple queries, and then we'll do the query with subquery. So what I did was, I'm using an editor. I do not use I never ever type my code in Microsoft Word. I type my code in the editor. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to start with something. It's not simple, but it's relatively simpler, right? So, and I'm going to go to run SQL, and I'm going to put this thing here. Right? So, what does this query do? Well, first of all, let's think about it. What should I expect? Here, I expect to display the airline sentiment and airline from airline sentiment, but I'm interested only in these three locations. These locations, the spelling of these locations is case sensitive, okay? The column name here is not, but this string comparison is case sensitive. And in means that I want to match any of these three locations. Okay? So let's do this. Let's run all, and this is what it returns, right? So I'm returning the airline sentiment and airline, and it only show me for this location. I'm sorry, user time zone rather, right? User time zone. But how do I verify that my query works? There is no way to verify, right? In order to verify that your query works as expected, you want to throw in user time zone to a query. And let's do run all. User time zone rather. Okay, yeah. So what I did was, look at this. I added it, right? I added user time zone to the query, and when I double check my query, I don't expect to see any other location except for this three, right? This is how you validate if the query works as expected. Well, you just spot check. Okay? Now, so this is something, now we're going to make it more difficult. I'm going to complicate it now. In a where clause, you can have multiple conditions, right? So let's get in here. And perhaps I can also look at the tweets that have more than one retweet count, right? So I'm going to make it harder right now. I'm going to say and retweet count is greater than 1. So let me do this, let me run this. Okay, now here again, how do I know that my query works as expected? I don't, right? So let's throw in this one here, retweet count. Okay. So this is how you troubleshoot. You want to throw in, right? So I'm going to do run all. See this? So now I know I'm right. Now let's add something else. I want to sort. To sort, you're going to put this, you're going to do this, order by. Now you have two options here. One option, you can put the actual column name, right? The column name from the select clause. Right? You can do this, and that this should work. Right? Or what else you can do is you can put the column position in a select clause. So if I put this order by one, it's going to be the same thing as order by airline sentiment, because it's taking the position of the column in the query. Okay? There we go. So now I'm going to run it. Run all. Okay? Then in this case, I don't see anything, I don't see blanks. But if I was going to sort by something that has missing values in it, right? I have an option to specify where if I want to put the missing values first on the list or last. And to do this, I could specify nulls last, right? So whenever you see nulls last in the query, it means that I want to put my missing values at the end. If the column I'm using for sorting has missing values, nulls last will put the missing values at the end. Right? There we go. Well, I get very excited when it comes to SQL. Okay, so this is relatively simple, huh? So let's look at more complex examples, and I'm going to be making it harder and harder and harder as we go. So this one, we're going to look at the subquery shortly, but let's look at something that has the aggregation, this one. This is very complex, but let's look at it. Okay, there we go, and I'm going to put it here. So what am I trying to accomplish here? I want to list the location, and then in the next column, I want to list the number of positive tweets in location. I want to list the number of neutral and the number of negative tweets, and I want to list the number of tweets. So what I'm doing here is that I want to count this. This is a decode function. The way decode works is that if airline sentiment is positive, right, I want to treat it as a 1. If airline sentiment is negative, I want to treat it as a null. Now, the way count function works is that it ignores the null values, right? So whenever I have a count on something, count is going to count the number of non-null values, right? So if airline sentiment is positive, that's a 1. If airline sentiment is not positive, it's null. So in other words, in the first column, I want to display how many positive tweets I have in this location, okay? This one is going to give me neutral and negative. And this one is going to give me the total, right? Well, I put count 1, yes. Or you can do, well, if I do count 1, well, that's fine. That's dummy 1. That's fine. Okay, so now let's see. From, this is a table name. This is a group by. I want my counts to be by tweet location. And as a rule of thumb, here in a group by clause, you have to list every non-aggregate column in a select clause. So whatever column I have in here, which is not count, not average, right? Non-aggregate column in a select clause have to be listed in a group by clause here, right? So now let's do this. Let's forget about this part at the bottom. Let's forget about this. Let's try running this as this. I'm gonna do run selected right now. Okay. So what does this do? Let's see. Okay. So I have tweets location, right? Tweets location, and in here it's gonna show me the number of positive tweets, a neutral, and a negative, right? It's a lot to look at. So now what I want to do is I want to eliminate the locations that have less than 25 tweets. Now, here it's very important. I'm not using the where clause here. I have to use the having clause because having clause will eliminate the groups, right? Each location in here is a group. So here I have to use the having clause. On the other hand, if I was doing something like where location, where time zone, whatever, with location starts with a T, then I would have used the where clause, right? Because that criteria would be applicable to a specific location. It does not apply to the count by location. So whenever you have something that filtering is done on a group, right, then you have to use a having clause, right? So here, having count greater than 25, right? I want to look only at the locations that have 25 or more tweets. Okay, so here it is. Now, take a look at this. What is this? This is when location is blank. It's because I put count 1 in here, right? I put count 1. That's why my output includes the blank location. On the other hand, if I do this, this will only produce the number of tweets where location is not blank, right? Because when I put the column in here like this, the count ignores the nulls, okay? So let me run this. See this? Right now, my output excludes the rows where location is blank, right? Because count ignores the null values. Count with location ignores. Same thing applies to average and the sum, right? These aggregate functions will ignore the null, right? So now we are going to look at the subqueries. And you have to do the subquery for your assignment, right? So basically, what is a subquery? It's a query inside another query. Subquery could return one value. It could return the values list, right? Like a single column, multiple rows. Or it can return the virtual table, multiple rows, multiple columns. You might place a subquery in a select clause from where and having of the query. Now, for just an example, if the query returns a single value, it will probably go to where or having clause. And virtual table would probably go to the from clause, okay? And I'm going to give you an example here. So here it is. I want to find out the negative reasons that have an confidence, negative reason confidence above average, right? I want to know the negative reasons that have above average confidence. Oops, I don't know what's going on. Okay, I need to find out. With which negative reasons have an above average, right? In general, how would you find negative reasons above average? You would go ahead and find an average, right? You would find an average, and then you would substitute an average into the query, right? This is how you would do it. You would run, one way you would run the query to get the average, and then you substitute, right? Instead of substituting the average, we are going to substitute a subquery to get that average. See this? So this little subquery returns the average confidence. Instead of substituting that average, I I just substitute the subquery. This is what's happening here, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. I have this code in here, right? Let me see. Yes. So no, this is a location. Here it is. This is a code. Okay, so let me copy. And now the line that starts with couple dashes, this is a comment, right? So let's see. In this one, I think. Oops. So let's run this like this first. Okay, I'm gonna go in. Oops, where was it? Here. So I'm going to replace this query, and I'm going to run. First of all, let's run this. Right. So this one returns the average, right? But I need to know above average. So to spot check yourself, whatever gets returned has to be above this number, right? Whatever gets returned has to be above this number, right? So here it is. I get my reasons, and with a negative reason above that number. There we go, right? So here I'm using the subquery in the having clause, not the where clause, because I'm looking at the average confidence per reason. Okay, I'm looking at the average confidence per reason. So this is an example of when you would use the query in a having clause, right? There is an example that I wrote right before this meeting, and I'm going to show you something here. So here, this is an example of a subquery in a from clause, and after this session I'll let you have a copy of the code. Okay, this is an example of the subquery in the from clause. So let's see what it does. Basically, I want to list my airline, I want to list the time zone, and here I want to list the delimited list of the reasons. I want to list the delimited list of the reasons, right? So what I did in here, this is my inner query. This inner query will return the airline, time zone, and negative reason. It will return the unique combination. So this is like my virtual table, right? This returns something like a virtual table. There we go, right? So now, and I specified where negative reason is not null, right? So now what I did was I plugged it in, right, in here. Airline, time zone, and list args. It's a function that this function returns a delimited list. So what I wanted to do is I want to take negative reason and I want to do the semicolon delimited list, and I'm grouping it by airline. But since I'm listing the airline and user time zone, right, these two are non-aggregate columns in the select clause, I have to put them in a group by clause. Okay? So this query is a little bit advanced, but it's a good example when you would use the subquery in the from clause, right? So remember that you want to save this code on your computer, because if you're inactive, I'm not sure what exact interval is, but if you go to eat dinner and when you come back from your dinner, you might be logged out. Your session could time out, so you have to save a copy on your computer, right? So let's continue, but I wanted to make sure that I showed you the subqueries, because this piece was not in a, it may not have been in the walkthrough because it's too much for the walkthrough. Okay? So this is an error message. If you get this, right? I intentionally made it. It means that you misspelled the column name. See this? So this is the issue. It's not a valid in the context error. It means that you have a spelling error in your query. So troubleshooting. You want to make sure that you're querying the correct table, right? You want to check the spelling of the column name. And you can click on, if there is an error message, you can click on the details link to learn more about the error. Okay? Now, this is a question here. The query output is limited to 1000 rows. How do you know programmatically the number of rows? Very easy. You can do this. So this is another example of the subquery in the from clause, right? I can do this. Well, this is how you find out how many rows the query returns. To find out how many rows the query returns, you would do this. Let me get to here. So here it is, right? Suppose that I don't know how many rows my query return. So I'll do this. Look at this. Select count star, right? Select count star, and then I'm gonna do this from, and then I put this everything here in parentheses. Okay, everything besides this one is here. Right? So I'm gonna, oh, sorry, my fault. Here, this is a query, right? So I put it here like this. See this? I put everything in here. Select count star from, and I put this part in a parentheses. And I'm gonna do run selected, and it's gonna tell me how many rows this query actually returns. In this case, it's 175. So sometimes when you run a query, your preview gets only 1000, but sometimes you'll be interested to know how many rows match the query criteria. So this is how you do it. You do select count star from, and then you put your query inside. So this is an example of the subquery in the from clause, another one, right? So that's like a two birds in one stone. I showed you how to get the row count, and I showed you how in another example of the subquery. And take a look at this. I have two levels of nested subqueries, right? A subquery could have another subquery. This is what I have on here. Now let's go back. Here, oh yeah, there is a setting that you can change the maximum number of rows, but you still cannot go above this 10,000. If you go to the settings, right here, it's right here, settings, and this number it can be increased, but you know, all right. I don't see a reason for actually increasing it. Well, the reason they want to put a limit because they don't want you to be downloading a bunch of data. They don't want you to be, well, there are multiple reasons, but you can see only the subset of rows, okay? Because the main purpose is not to download the whole data. The main purpose is to download the report, the specific purpose. We are not selecting everything from the data. The queries that we write has to have a specific purpose, okay? Selecting all data from the table lacks purpose, right? So that should not be one of your queries, no. Okay? So now let's continue to the slides. Here, this is a message you may get if your session times out. If you receive this message, you just click on sign in, all right? Now, this part is important. This is for R. This code sets up the connection from R to your DB2 warehouse on the cloud database environment. Here is going to be your schema name, right? Your password and your host. So where do you get this information? It's in a service credentials page. Here, see this? Service credentials. It's in here. It's over here, right here. So you have to click on, it's here. See this? This is your information. This is where you get your password, your schema name, and the URL that you'll need to plug in to the R code. And R is, oops, I'm looking at the wrong service. I have an RStudio open here. But to get into here, you get to Watson Data Science Experience, and then you go to Tools, and you're going to select an RStudio. Well, for some reason, when you access RStudio next time, it tries to remember where you were at the end of last session. So whenever you have something that you no longer need to use, please remove it from memory, okay? Because on the next login, it will attempt to load in memory. And I have seen cases when RStudio will take forever to load. It's because some people did not follow instructions, let's say this way. Okay, so here it is. This package is allowed. You must install this package because this is a package that is used to connect to the database, right? Remember that you install the package only once, but the package is not available until it's loaded in memory. So to load it in memory, you have to run this library command, right? Okay, mine is loaded to memory already. Something else that I need to tell you, the connection times out. So if you are working on something, right, you're working and then you go to eat dinner, and when you come back from dinner and you try to run something like this, it might not work because your database connection timed out. See, like if I'm running this now, this does not work, right? See, this object not found. It's because my connection is closed. I have to run this code again to establish my connection, right? So this one sets up the connection parameters, right? And then I just do this, my connect, right? Add the init. This is how I connect, right? If you're getting an error, make sure you have the correct password. It's a case sensitive, right? Okay. So in your walkthrough code, I intentionally pull out the schema name and password because I don't want you to be connecting to my account. You have to be connecting to your account. And unfortunately, it's a valid API call, so, but I don't want you to be using my account. I want you to be using your account, okay? All right. So here, what this would do is this reads data from the database into the data frame. This is how you do it, right? So this is basically your homework assignment that you need to do, right? This is your homework. But I was going to show you some common error messages that the students in the past semesters have been running into. And they're all in the slides. We'll get to that. But this one here, this is very helpful information. This command will return the tables that you have in your schema. Okay, here are the tables that you have in your schema. So if I was going to run this, I'm gonna get more because those are my tables that I have, right? I'm going to get more because I took all of the data sets that are in your assignment options and I tested them. So you could also do this. This will show me the tables that contain this string, right? Ooh, something went wrong. Oh yeah, do you know what's wrong? It's because Yelena did not listen to herself. What did Yelena say about not typing the code in Microsoft Word or something like that? What did Yelena say about it? Oh, you see that? Did you see the error that just happened? It's because the quote, the single quote that you get from rich text editor is not recognized in R. So I just illustrated to you that there is a problem, and sometimes those characters are hard to find. And I don't want anybody to be struggling 5 minutes or 1 hour before the assignment is due, okay? I don't want anybody to be rewriting the code from scratch. Alright? So here, this just is checking the table that contains this word air. So this is what I would need to do. I can take this, I can take this and I can run my query like this. See this? I'm going to copy and paste for right now. This is my SQL statement, right? And I can do this, like this, right? And then I put it in a double quote, and I can do this. See this? Any query that I ran in a, here it is. So I can run it here, and I'm supposed to get the same result, right? There we go. See this? I can run it here. But let's assume that I got an error message. The query didn't work. What would I do? So let's think about it. If I ran a query like this with either df command, and if I got an error, what are my troubleshooting steps? Well, I would say take this query and go back to the database and see if it runs in the database. Right? If something here inside this command does not work, you can go back and you can come here and run this query here, troubleshoot it here. So your first step is to get the working query and you just plug it in, right? The way I just showed you. And the same thing, that's the case for any queries. So let's go back to this here. Right? So I'm just showing you few things that you can do. Oh, here it is. This is an example. So take a look. This query, select name, creator, time, colon, count. This is how in a DB2 warehouse, right? This is how in SQL you get table data programmatically. You can do the same thing. You can run the same query in R. See, I put you these examples here. The same query that you run in SQL, you can actually run it in R, in theory, okay? Just to make sure you're aware of it. And when you run a query in R, if you get an error, you want to go back to the database and start debugging. You want to check the column names, everything like that. This error message, if you get this error message, you have to make sure that your username and password are correct. This is a R error message, and this is one of the common error messages in R that I see people get, okay? It's one of the most common error messages that I see people get. It's because the panel is covering up and I'm unable to change it. But that's a code, and that's a service, and this is RStudio. Okay. Now let me go back to the slides. Here we go. Here, if you're getting this error, okay, let me explain what's going on. Some packages have a function with the same name. Inspect function is part of the TXMining TM package, and it's also part of the rules package. So when you have more than one package in memory, right? When you have more than one package with the same function, with the same name loaded in memory, the function in one package will shadow the function in the other package with the same name. So this is the reason here. Someone who tried to run the command to preview the association rules got this error. It's because the person had the rules package and TM package in memory at the same time. So here is the solution. You need to qualify the function name with a package name. So I can put a rules, count, right? And this is a function name. This is what you do it. So you qualify this function name with a package name. So that way R will know which inspect function to call, okay? And you will see it, there are several functions in this assignment. You notice that in the walkthrough player package, PLYR, yeah, count function, I believe I'm qualifying it, yes. Otherwise, if I did not, I could get an error. Okay, so this is one example of an error you could get. Okay, so let's see what other errors. This one, well, here, this is what happened. I ran this query, right? I ran this query. Instead of text, I typed text intentionally, right? And when I try to check how many rows my query returned, I get nothing. Okay, why did that happen? It's because my query did not work. So, if you get this, you have to take your query to DB2 warehouse in the cloud, and you run the query, see if the query runs. If it does not, you want to start checking the syntax and you want to compare the column names, right? So first you have a working query and then you put it in. There is more than one way to do it, but, well, this is how I would do it. Now, there are certain things that you would want to do. There is more than one way to do it. You can do certain things via SQL, right? Or you can do certain things in R. It depends which skill you have the strongest, right? Well, like you noticed, for some of this, I am doing some, when I'm selecting something in a query, like this one here is an example, right? I am inside the query. Here, I could be eliminating, I could be specifying the time zones that I want inside the query, right? Alternatively, you could select all data, and then when you're working with R, you can filter out on the spot. But I'm going to recommend to do it this way. You know why? Because you don't want to be selecting the whole table from the database if you're not going to use it. Any variable that you're not going to use it, I recommend that you remove it, right? RM command. Okay? So now let's see, do we have questions? Class, do we have questions? Because honestly, as a former student, as a former A in most of the classes, A student, I had A in most of the classes, right? I expect that I thought that you guys would probably be almost done with this tutorial and started working on the assignment. That would have been ideal, right? Because you want to start working on assignment this week. If you don't, you'll have to be working overtime next week to finish the assignment. Trust me. You'll have to be studying overtime to finish the assignment. So, I need you to start soon. Okay, finish this tutorial and start working on assignment. Everything is already available in the classroom. Okay? Can you promise me? Okay, so let's ask questions. Let me see the chat. Because when people don't ask questions, I start asking questions. What is the difference between where clause and having clause of a query? Anyone? Where clause does what? Filters what?
The where clause gives you conditions that you're
excellent.
pulling the data from.
Excellent. So where clause, you specify you filter the rows, right? And a having clause, we filter the groups. Excellent. Well, this question, you will see it on a job interview. Trust me, you will see it a lot in a job interview. The difference between where clause and having. Yes, you'll see it. And that little things that I showed you. Yes, Nancy, excellent question. I'll post the PowerPoint slides to you. I'll give you also the copy of the queries that I ran today. And also feel free to ask me SQL because my degree is in DBST. I did a lot of SQL, so I can help you a lot with SQL if you want. If you'd like, if you're interested, feel free to ask me SQL questions. I'll be more than happy to. And if you would like to improve your SQL skills, okay? So, yeah. Yes, but PowerPoint will be available to you, definitely. Yeah. So, and yeah, so what course can we take at UMEC to improve SQL? Oh, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. DBST program is a lot of SQL. DBST 651 is an introductory SQL, and it's an introductory database class. And a lot of students taking that class, some of them are database major, some of them are healthcare major, because I was a TA of that course for some time, so that's introductory and they introduce you SQL. Yeah, DBST 651 is an introductory to SQL course. And it's very good, they give you overall background, and you basically learn how to create table, and you learn how to do the queries, yeah. Yeah. Will you have the WebEx available? Well, yes, excellent question. Yes, the WebEx is being recorded, and we will post the recording afterwards. Because when the recording comes from the server, we have to do something, upload it to YouTube, and then you'll get the link. Yes, yes, it will be available to you, and the slides as well. So, but I'm so glad that you were able to join, even though it's late. I'm still glad you were able to join the session. Yes. So I mean, yeah. Anyhow, yeah. GBST 651. It's an excellent course, and well, what's interesting is that you have people with different SQL background in there, as well as a database major students. Yeah. And sometimes we offer it in class as well. Sometimes hybrid format. So yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Do we have other questions? Let's see what other questions we have. Or maybe Linesh, do you have anything to add to what I said?
Yeah, I know late, kind of getting late, but just wanted to add something that, Elena had alluded to, Professor Korcho alluded to earlier, that, we want to kind of keep an open mind, right? I mean, as you mentioned, to these technologies, because there's always, things are changing, and we want to keep an open mind on how we use it, and kind of always expect the unexpected, right? So what does that really mean? I mean, it also means that, these technologies are going to be sensitive, and it's going to be based on the environment, right? It's going to be sensitive to your environment. So how you use it, like your browser, your, internet service, or, your internet speed, it's going to be dependent a lot on that. So just be sensitive to that, and make sure that, when you get into any kind of issue that you see, whether it's adding a service on the cloud, or the our studio is not opening up on the cloud, see that you follow certain best practices on the internet, right? And or on the browser. And then what do I mean by that? It's kind of just saying that, Yelena also just mentioned in one of the slides, like in one of the don'ts, is not to open too many accounts, right? Don't have too many tabs for different accounts or for different areas, because what that does, it could have confused you as to what you did in which particular tab. So just go like in a little bit of a single threaded way. The environment is multi-threaded that you're joining or on the cloud, but when you are logging in, or getting any issues, try to go through your best practices. Am I just logged in once? Have I cleaned up my browser cache? And I'm getting some errors, or something is not running well or not going on well. Okay, let me shut down, but shut down gracefully. Shut down the browser, shut down the RStudio before that. Make sure that some errors you're getting, you are clearing the browser cache, closing the browsers, restarting it. And then if you see the same errors, then of course, you can reach out to one of us. But I mean, these are certain best practices, and the reasons I'm kind of pointing out to you, because, yeah, they could be frustrating at times, but, going through this certain steps will make things easier for you, and you don't have to really, contact someone or wait for someone to really help you with it. And you'll get into it a lot once you start using this, cloud services. That's why I'm kind of pointing this out. These are very simple things, but they're very powerful in kind of, eliminating any errors that you may see. Okay, so that's all. So thanks.
And if you are unable to add this service to your account, right, please contact us immediately. We don't want to find it out on Sunday, okay? We don't want to find it out on Sunday. We want to find it out now, okay? Please, because yes, at least one person we have to work through, yeah. So, but we want to make sure that they at least try to get it resolved. If we can't get it resolved internally, then I'll tell you the next steps. But first, let's try to resolve internally, okay? Okay, he says you have been having issues with an account. Would you mind to email? Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Is it Teresa, right?
Yeah, that was Teresa.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, Teresa has been having issues with an account, that's right. And I was working with IBM today to see what we could do to resolve it. Yes.
Yeah, so just to chime in a little bit, I've been having issues. Thankfully, I didn't wait until like last minute to do my assignments. But Yelena and Lanesh and the professor, everybody's been helping me. But we've been working on this for, I'm going to say, at least 8+ hours. So please don't wait until the last minute.
Yeah. And Jesse is asking which language. Jesse, for this assignment you use SQL and you use ARC, okay? But like she was like I'm doing here, well, here I suggest doing the select statements because you want to pull only the data that you need. You don't want to pull the data that you'll need. Like for example, if I want to look only at positive tweets, right? In my query I just put where airline sentiment equals positive. It's because you don't want the data set, you don't want the data frame size to be too large, right? You work with only the data that you need. And some of you, if you're going to be doing the dendrogram for assignment 3, most of you are familiar with disadvantages of dendrograms, right? So one way to reduce the number of terms is to make your query selection more specific. Like for example, I could be looking at the tweets at the specific location. Well, think so with that. You can eliminate the number of terms just by narrowing down the query, looking at the specific city perhaps, or looking at the specific airline, right? Something like that. That's one way. Yeah. But okay. But yes, you have to use SQL and you have to use R. If you read the instructions, it says you have to use both in here. Okay? But any objections to it? Any difficulties? Do you foresee any difficulties with that? If you need any help with anything, there are some resources in the classroom. Or if you need some refresher on R, let me know, because we'll see what we can do. Okay? So let's see what other questions we have. So if you're having issues, again, I need to know it today. Okay? I need to know it today. And you really have to use your trial account for this service to work. This service is not available if your account is not trial account. Okay? Right? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, is Yelena still here? No? Lanesh, may I ask you to check if Yelena is still here?
Yeah, I'm checking that.
Okay. So while you're checking, okay. For the next assignment, guys, you want to pick one of the data sets. You want to download the file from assignment folder because I cleaned them up. I cleaned the data for you. I don't want you to be spending hours on some data that had new line characters in it. So the way to find the new line character in Excel is that you do Control-J. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you do the search and insert in a search box, you type Control-J, and you will see it looks like a little dot.